trying to get. No, that's all right. Keep them both short.
Just getting
Yeah, the library. I've never known any hotel to have a library.
We know the Crown Bar to headline.
That's what they call the bar, isn't it?
Right. Are we public now?
Yes.
Okay, right. So we are doing, as part of the LTP, we do a review of a number of policies. So this is a review of one of the policies that is essentially linked, if you like, to the LTP work program. So this is obviously around grants. And so we'll be talking through the grants that's with the community board. Be really clear, this is about the policy that drives the grants, the decisions and things that you make around the grants. This is not about the size of the grants. We'll have that conversation with you at a later date. Right, why no? Next slide, please. So, first question, we want to understand what works for you as a community board and for your community about the grants as they currently come. Go, fire away. Now, I'm sorry, I should know. So Alex is going to be taking notes for us. So Alex is our strategy policy advisor, so she'll also policy component. Obviously, you both know Ellie and Rebecca. But fire away.
What works?
Yeah, what works? What's good about grants?
Oh, well, we get fireworks, we get, I mean, there's lots of community activities that bring, like up winter, you know, that bring people together.
Yeah.
That wouldn't happen necessarily unless they got their grant. And I mean, they do a lot, they work hard, and we as a community get a lot of benefit out of that and a lot of joy.
So I think with my recent interrogation of my rates bill, correct me if you hear anything out of whack here, but $10 of my rates goes towards the Cromwell promotions grant, and $6 of that 10 goes to Light Up Winter. So if we weren't putting that grant towards Light Up Winter, you'd be shaking the bucket. Well, there's already a bucket getting shaken there, isn't there? But you'd be shaking the bucket for people as an entry fee. And I don't know if these events would be so popular. I don't know if like $5, $6 does turn people off, or if it would turn people off. But I think it's good for the community as a whole to fund those events to actually make them happen, because without that $60,000 head start, that's a massive gap to fill from some funding stream, and you can't make an event that big hoping for $2 here and there from people coming in the gate.
Yeah, and I mean, we do know that we all appreciate that in this environment people are strapped for cash, and those are the first things that will disappear. Can't afford to take the kids. You know, that kind of, so if you can make it more accessible, then the grants are doing their job.
Yeah. Sorry, Molly, just on your question before about is $5 or $6 much of a barrier? What we do know, we had evidence, I suppose, with the Blossom Festival in Alexandra. It's a $6 ticket price, and maybe you get about $12,000 through the gate. So, yeah, as an example. Yeah.
So Light Up Winter has a whole lot of fixed cost. When you look around, there's still fixed costs. You got marquees, you got lights, all that sort of stuff. So if you're trying to retrospectively pay that with $2 coming in the gate, that's a massive liability for them if they were trying to fund it that way.
Yep.
And I mean, if you think about the Blossom Festival, for example, I mean, people come up from Dunedin and they come all over the place to go to the Blossom Festival because it's got history.
Yeah.
Whereas Light Up Winter, it's relatively central Otago. And mainly Cosmo, really. So, you know, it's got a much smaller pool that it lives on.
Blossom Fest is a much wider scale event to actually travel to town for as well. Yeah, like Light Up Winter's an evening.
Well, I think you have half the country's trucks there.
Yeah.
What about the community grant space?
I think it's a really good opportunity for things that otherwise just wouldn't get foothold. I
Yep.
think it's great to, and I don't know about the funding workshops, but I know I've talked to a lot of people, I've said you could go along to that.
Yep.
So you get, even if it is perhaps for that gets you leverage to get something else.
Yes.
That seems to be the key to a lot of things. Like we can't give a lot of money, and that's what I know Katie Seymour did approach probably all of us initially about them trying to get that group together and said, what could council do? You know, will council pay for it? I said, just being realistic, no, we can't pay for that. We haven't got the money for that. But if we can get you that foot in the door to get something that is fundable, that is actually really beneficial for them, and more so because otherwise they would just flounder. So having that available is also, but hand in hand with the money and the advice, because I don't think you can do one without the other. So it's good to have both of those, like having a knowledgeable team, having people that can help you, having those clinics. They're almost as valuable as the money that's available.
Yeah, so that's similar feedback along the lines I'm trying to remember which community board gave it to us, because this is our third one of these now.
Yeah.
Around what they do create is a connection
Yeah.
with the community, into the community, but also with the staff and the advice staff.
Yeah.
Which might direct them to a different avenue.
We've had that before, haven't we? When somebody's arrived and they've applied for a grant and then we found that in actual fact there's another avenue to get them funding that we here in the community hadn't thought of. And so, I mean, it can open other doors for them.
But it's not just opening the purse, because it's quite a limited amount, relatively, really, once you look at what's been pre-promised.
Those out in the ether online, any views different to what we've heard?
Nothing different to what you've already heard. I mean, I think, you know, I go along with everything that other members have said about the Light Up Winter events and that sort of thing. But I do actually think that the Light Up Winter event is actually becoming a bit of an iconic event for Central Otago, and does actually draw an awful lot of people in from further afield, which I think I'll probably disagree with one or two people on that, but there's an awful lot of people come up from Dunedin and from Invercargill, for example, for that. So yeah, just that.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, and we have seen, Ali, you probably talked about because you see the applications, but their numbers certainly keep don't they?
Yeah, I think particularly this year, the change of location is really beneficial. And the feedback from the group themselves was that they very keen to be staying in that space. And I can see that it will be allow them to grow the event and look at opportunities that could bring them in some additional revenue because they do have to fence that space.
Yeah.
So, and by doing that, that can open the doors to other funding, which the likes of the promotional funding through the regional events fund, which has to be a ticketed event. So there are ways that they can tap into those types of things if they run events a certain way.
It's settling on the date that works for something to grow that as well, you know, like whether you're looking at the skiers or the school holiday mix and whatever, because it's crossed over. It's been school holidays before, it's been.
Yeah, so we encourage them out of school holidays.
Yeah.
For the fact that
Already got
it's already busy. So
yeah.
Let's look at another weekend to drive visitation.
But that works well.
Seems to be.
Yeah. And if you get that and then it gets onto the skiing calendar and it gets out there and you know, the mountains are cross-referencing and all those things, that's where you're going to grow something.
And it also fits with, which we'll see shortly, the events framework, which is around spreading
things out rather than constantly. Yeah, definitely. So that's all good.
Cool. All right. Well, that leads to an obvious question.
What
Doesn't work so well? So what doesn't work for you as community board members or for your community? And I guess what we're really keen to hear is what are the solutions to what's not working well?
You don't have an open checkbook.
So you want an open
No,
checkbook?
just-
Okay, just clarify.
It's a barrier.
I think it's a shame that the figure looks so big.
Sorry.
I think it's a shame for some groups that come into thinking that there is something available that everything kind of is predetermined to. A good percentage of it is already allocated, and I think it's appropriately allocated. Like, I don't think that we shouldn't be supporting that, but I think it's almost a little bit of a misnomer saying there's a community contestable grant when it's not really contestable. Because we'd be shooting ourselves in the foot to not give them the money we're giving them.
Yeah.
But the reality is it's 10% of the amount that it looks like it should be is available.
Pretty much.
And that's a shame that we almost can't split that into another tranche of funding that, let's just be honest with what we're doing. So look, promotions is a thing that we need to fund, and it's not as much a contestable grant as something that we continue that funding, because these events need it, we need it. Like, I don't disagree with it, but having a contestable pot that what's in it is actually available would be a little bit more transparent, I think, if anything.
But then we have also in the past encouraged these groups to actually become more self-sufficient, and it seems that that hasn't really happened to the same degree as perhaps we'd hoped. They're still quite reliant. I'm not saying that they're not.
It's not saying that, no,
Yeah.
to be fair to the group, they are much more on the page with sponsorship arrangements and actually doing much better in that space. And I think there's, there is still room for them to move.
Their costs have grown, I'm sure, so
Yeah.
like they're bringing more in, but the costs have grown, so what they need from us is still fairly insane, this is it.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, that one. Is it, if you think wider than in another board area, you've got a major event which is probably getting about a quarter of the funding that would towards their event. That this board gives out to that one event.
It is almost all of our money goes there.
Yeah.
And it's a wise investment, isn't it, to invest in promoting your town and bringing people in, and it's a no-brainer because we know it's a proven recipe, so that's good.
I
But
think the challenge would be if you had an application for something really amazing come in at the same time.
and we've already given the money away in our heads. What do you do then? Yeah. And that's the thing, like this, how many years has Light Winter's been going now? 5 or 6?
6.
6. Yeah, I had a new one. Must be 6. Much have I did. Yeah. Like it's still relatively new, but before it happened, now it's established, we're like, oh, you couldn't do without that. But who's to say there isn't something else or extra or different?
Yeah.
And it's not the only event they produce.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No.
Yeah. And I think it is, the reality is, and we've flagged this a number of times, because we talk to you when we bring these to you, and Cromwell will be getting more activity and more events likely to come. We already know that. We're already involved in conversations with other events that will come at some point in the future, whether that's next year or in 3 or 5 years, but there will be stuff going. So,
But the problem is at the moment we don't have an endless bucket of funding.
No.
That's the issue.
if
That's where treat it fairly.
I'm imagining that when the replacement for the hall comes on board, that those sort of events that promote Cromwell and promote the district, the Central Otago district, will actually become more and more.
Pay the bills are better.
quite possibly, Bob, yeah.
And it's just coming, so.
You stop.
Just a reminder, we're in open forum.
I think what I actually meant by that was I'm not actually talking about events that take place within the hall. I'm talking about the fact that it is there, and the fact that that Cromwell will be seen, if you like, as a sort of a hub and as a go-ahead place, that it might actually attract more events from outside of or that are due to take place outside of the indoor venue.
Yeah. Yep. Not sure I heard solutions. Any of those solutions? I mean, obviously there's increased the grant pot, but you're going to be going against the tide on that one.
I think that would just make it a lot clearer.
It's almost unspoken that, everyone knows that
Yeah.
promotions gets the lion's share, and we've got that 11 grand we saw today that it's still sitting there contestable. It's just, as a proportion, it's not much.
Yes, but 11 out of 10, if somebody hears a figure and thinks, oh, I'm bound to get some money for that. Versus actually there's probably hundreds to thousands.
Have we got the community's expectation beaten down to match our pool? Because I don't feel like it's undersubscribed to the tune of much. Like, it's not like there's 200,000 of applications that we have turned down. On top of it, 100,000.
Well,
Our legal.
in the last few years, there's not been oversubscribed in the promotion space. It did for a short period. I'm not sure if that will stay the same.
As
Okay.
trouble grows, you mean?
Yeah, and just with how the world is changing, I'm not convinced that that will stay the same. You know, it's Dylan intimated there are potentially new events coming on stream that would be looking to come to the board for some support. But I think we didn't fully spend last year, from memory. I think it was a small,
There's a tiny
amount
amount
left over, about a couple of $1,000.
I've got
Yeah.
a solution. So, do we actually just formalise the grant that Cromwell Promotions get, and then they know they've got that funding and they know what events?
Can I just put a caution there? Sport's been there before.
As you know, following it up as your policy advisor, that is, it's
We
It's a
do,
terrible idea.
we touched on this later, actually.
Yeah.
So,
that's that accountability. If it becomes an item that's expected and we remove that onus of accountability, we start to lose our fiscal responsibility.
Yeah.
But that's that line that we're having to walk here.
It's about having that accountability in place.
And
Like, I'm not talking like a 4-year deal, I'm talking annual.
but
Right.
then we also would lose that encouraging them to become more sustainable themselves if we just say to them, you know, we're going to give it to you over, you know, for the next, we're guaranteeing you money for you next 3 years or something. They're not going to try too hard to go and find other funding.
We do.
It can come with conditions.
we do come to these questions shortly.
Yes.
Okay. Right, so just a quick reminder before we get into kind of some of the recommendations and then further questions for you. So the pots, for want of a better term, that sit with a community board. So community grants, so Rebecca's area, they are a general ward rate. There are 2 rounds per annum. There's provision within the first year of the LTP to hand out a multi-year grant. So in a 3-year LTP, you could hand out 3 years worth of funding to a community grant group. Council also has a community grant pot. They align to the community outcomes that are identified in the long-term plan, or that's the intent of applications and how we assess them. And applicants are generally very strongly community focused and deliver on some or all of the 4 well-beings, whatever other word we put in there. Should.
If you have to, Jim.
Promotions grants, so targeted award rate, as Wally notes on his rates bill. 2 rounds per annum. There you go. 2 rounds per annum. 1 year at a time only, so you can't allocate multi-year grants. No pot that is at the council level. We seek when we are assessing them, their alignment against community outcomes, but also against the destination management plan and also against the newly formed event framework, which will be provided to council shortly. And then applications are often focused on visitor attraction or economic benefit to the community that they function with. Wayno, next slide. So, generally, what we see working well, I'm not sure I've got a question up there. Community grants, overall feedback from the community boards, the applicants, and from staff, i.e. Rebecca, is that community grants under the current policy settings work really well. And essentially, any suggestions or recommendations that we're about to make are only very minor in the world of community grants. When it comes to promotions grants, there have been many tweaks, and we've played with these in many different ways. And as you just referred to, Lou, kind of like going full circle on some of these ideas. We play around with promotions grant, out of this. Where we're at now feels like good, but we think there are some areas where it can be better, but we're heading in the right direction. So we just want to go over recommendations are, seeking your guidance. There's also going to be, and you'll see these in the next few slides, our recommendations are over conversations that have happened, but there'll also be other questions that have been posed over the last couple of years around the grants. They're not necessarily our recommendations, but they're just questions that we want to throw at you as well. They might have been a question one of you have asked. It's just to throw up. So, into it. All right, here we go. Thank you. I've got my notes in front of me. Yeah, thank you. So chairperson's fund. Here's my printer copy in case it's technology. So we recommend this for both community and promotion, and that there is a small fund, a small value option. So it could be, say, up to $1,000, may be approved by the board chair out the normal funding round. They still have to go through the normal application process. It still gets recorded in a public meeting at the next available option, but there's the opportunity, so long as the funds are still in the pot.
Reactive.
Correct. It enables a bit more opportunity to help. And I know Rebecca's had examples of that in the
A
past.
couple of examples come to mind. One is Salvation Army built a community garden in Alex, and they got consent fee that essentially reimbursed for consent fee. So it would be a mechanism to like $300 would be allow them to go through the process, still apply, still meet the criteria, but the chief can sign it off in the interim. Or a hire of a facility for a community, so because we can't wipe the fee, so it's, yeah, it's because we only have 2 rounds a year.
So just want to get a general steer from members supportive of this, not supportive of this, other questions that you might have.
That makes sense. I mean, it probably should have come up before. It was not working as timeframes are prohibitive. It's not projects and people.
$1,000 is, you don't get a lot for $1,000. It's small.
No, you don't. So I guess that's up for debate, the size of that. But that was our recommendation.
But that's the kind of small fee room hire.
Yeah, that's it.
That kind of,
Yeah.
that's what you're looking at to cover.
Yeah.
Just my only
Yeah,
question.
I am wondering if 1,000 is just a little bit too small. However, just when you get to having, as you said, there's not a lot you can get for $1,000, so it might be a consenting fee for something. But
Not the Memorial Hall hire though, is it?
You got it.
It's Cromwell Community House Fire.
Built
They
in full
have
with
rooms for hire.
Or the Presbyterian.
Presbyterian chair.
yeah, yeah,
They do.
but most places, I mean, like even if you're hiring like at the moorings or the gate or Highlands Motorsport Park to use one of their rooms for something will cost you more than $1,000 a day. So, you know, I think that maybe that needs to just, you know, think what would that cover? What would make people come to look at asking for that type of an amount? Because even like when you think about out of cycle ones that have come in the past, they've tended to be a little bit more than that, haven't they?
It's not for large. I wouldn't be recommending large amounts being signed off by a chairperson.
Oh, no,
This
and I'm
is-
not talking about large amounts. I'm just saying that 1,000, if it might be 1,500 that actually is a more appropriate amount. I just think that to think about what does $1,000 actually get you in terms of if you're, if it's a community project or a promotions activity where you need venue hire or something, because even, what did you say earlier, Dylan, that it cost you for hiring the
$2,000.
Sound system. Yeah, so a sound system for a weekend to make it so that an event can happen was $2,000 or $3,000. It's you know, the things that are small parts of events still might be more than $1,000 worth.
But how much is it relative to what you've got to give out?
Well, if what we've got to give out is $106,000, then $1,000 is
How much
very
have we
small
got
relative to
available
that.
of that to give out?
Also, and I will just remind you as well, see, this is a council policy that has to apply across all boards.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
There is, of course, a couple of boards where their pot total is $2,000.
Yeah, so you wouldn't
So
make
just
it
have
any
that
more.
in your mind, but obviously whatever this board has as its preference, we will take to council.
We just had I'm a member of the Otago Community Trust, and we had, it has a chairperson's fund. We had a discussion on this earlier in the week about not continuing it because timing's not an issue for it. Because they have monthly grant cycles, and so you can usually get something in. And the other reason it's used at the moment is for things that don't meet the criteria, like for individuals. But as a trust, we don't think that's appropriate, and so we're looking at actually reversing it. But I do think it's a good idea to introduce here. But it's really thinking about the why behind it.
And if I can add something to that, over the years, quite a few years, a number of times community groups have said, can you waive all consent fees? Can you waive resource consent fees? We are a community group and we've got no money. Rebecca, I was pleased to hear that a consent fee was as low as $300. At the time, we spoke to elected members in different forums and saying, what do you think about this? And they said, no, it's not your place as staff, it's the place of elected members to waive those, which is welcome to my ears, because I'd hate to have a situation where staff are in a position to go, oh, this is worthy, not worthy. So I think it sits right for elected members. When we pass that back, I think because of the structure, people may not bother because of the timing and there could be a barrier there.
I'd just say, in principle, I don't have a problem with this at all, actually. It's just, I think we need to look at that value. And a 1,500 might be more appropriate. That's.
The guidance of saying 1,500 more appropriate.
Yeah, but that's in the context of Cromwell, like you say.
Yeah. So is that general consensus from?
And chairperson's fund, obviously, the name speaks for itself, but what level of discussion is there required amongst the board of 7?
So,
any non.
well, so the chairperson has essentially you are saying the chairperson has the discretion to sign off.
Yeah.
Based on obviously receiving an application and recommendation from staff. But they're accountable to yourselves, but.
But that would be something you'd still expect the chair to get the consensus of.
Entirely up to the board how you function.
Yeah, I mean, right now not a problem, but you never know what you're going to get, do you?
Goes rogue.
Exactly. Who knows what they're going to be funding?
That was the other discussion we had for Otago Community Trust, was nowadays you can get an urgent decision over a weekend.
Yeah, and that's it. Like you can't base a policy on the people you've got in your trust right now. You've got to really take that down to the lowest level.
Yep.
You know, and I could go rogue.
You're going to finally get yourself a new swimming uniform. 90s on that t-shirt back.
No, they give those to you when you qualify. So you don't have to pay for those t-shirts. That they're a status symbol.
You obviously can limit your exposure by keeping that value low.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, just I think sometimes we've made decisions with the best intentions and the best people in mind, but it's always good to have some safeguards around how that is used.
It being based on a staff recommendation, it's like the person they still has to apply.
Yeah.
Staff have to recommend the chair then makes the decision.
And if there's uncertainty, couldn't you have an informal email?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah, and that's it, but just some form,
Yeah.
but that direction being in there, that yes, it's the chairperson's fund, but the chairperson is leading that, but it's still a Cromwell Community Board thing or a management, you know, it's the board as a whole.
So obviously as staff, we don't police how you
Yeah,
make those decisions. That's entirely up to yourselves.
How much discussion is there around the other boards about the level of funding that they dish out to the community? Because it is board rate, right?
Every single one of them has that conversation.
Yeah.
And it bounces around. Obviously we take a staff recommendation when we come to budgets and allocations of the size of the pot based on the applications we've received to show a trend.
Yeah, it's kind of like chicken egg, isn't it? Because you're not going to have a massive influx of applicants when you know there's only a couple of grand there anyway. So you're not going to have 15 that are at this $10,000 level when there's only 2 grand. Like you got that class ceiling right on top of them to start with.
Yep.
If I just point out, historically, Vincent would allocate grants in the region of 40-something thousand to 50,000, and that's their pot. This year they had applications in excess of double that amount.
Yeah.
So that's just.
So for promotions or?
That's for promotion. So that's looking at how fluid that space is. Now it changes really rapidly.
They had a little bit of wiggle room in their community grants, but we recommended a decline for a significant one. Council was far oversubscribed in community grants. And that's pressure on funding nationally. That's really causing that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I take it there's a consensus that you support the chairperson's fund, but the recommended level from this board is 1,500. Kieran?
I personally, I don't mind it staying at 1,000, but I'm just not quite sure what you can get for 1,000.
Yeah, just.
but it doesn't mean you can't find your event if that's what you're after. You just got to find it somewhere else, haven't you? Like it's 1,000 towards something. You're not going to turn around and say, "Oh, forget it." I'm still going to take it and have to find something.
Moderate the conversation around events. Events normally have a longer lead.
Yeah, it's not going to pop up and be.
No.
It's actually more likely to be useful in the community space
Yeah,
rather
and so it is probably 1,000 is the end of the world.
we need some direction, please.
Well, I'm open to what do you think? Would you prefer a 1,500 or 1,000? I mean,
I think it was 1,500.
what about you?
I'm not allergic to either, to be honest. I just think how it's applied for, and like you say, because there's more, sometimes people think, oh, yeah, you don't want to get into the habit of thinking, I'll just go for that option because it's quicker or easier, or if it is a small thing, sometimes it's easier to say yes to. You wouldn't want anybody in that habit.
There's going to be gateways into it, right? Like if you need it in 6 months, then guess what? You're going to the
You go back,
Yeah, they could be.
it's got to be.
So obviously, there's 1,500.
Yeah, that's what Bob was also.
Yeah, so I'm okay with it. I'm against it.
That's fine. I'll go with
Thank you.
consensus.
Alex, you got that?
Yeah.
Cool.
I've already listed it as that for you.
Just want to double. All right, this one might be a little bit easier. Renaming promotions grants to promotions and event grant. Now, the reason for this, I touched on it before, was we see a lot of the requests for promotions funding come in and they really emphasise in that it's an event that is going to attract people into the town or it's about economic benefit for the town. Actually, often some really cool stuff. Maybe not applying, but it could still be a really cool event. It doesn't have to have this economic or visitor attraction component. It can just be a really cool event. And so our recommendation is actually we may be putting people off by the current title being promotions. We call it promotions and event grant.
But sailing my yachts is an event.
Yep. You've still got to.
But we didn't say we wouldn't support it.
Yep.
Yeah.
We didn't support what they were asking for money for because it was physical things that we would then buy them something to take home and store. That doesn't fit with that MO of what that money's for. I think that's different.
It's an easy decision for me. It's something that brings heaps of people to town. with that promotion.
Or
And an event.
I'd say not even, like do something for the people of here.
Yeah.
I know I've talked to people about a Matariki celebration that they're looking at how that can happen. And they've purposely said they'd actually like that to be quite insular.
Yep.
Because we do so much for other people and we don't celebrate ourselves, they actually would like to go the opposite way, and heaven forbid you should say don't come. But for a Cromwell centric something, because we do pimp ourselves out to every tourist every time, because we are a tourism region, but we do, but looking after your own people as well.
Yeah.
That's a well-being, isn't it, for your community?
Well, that's
And-
truth like that.
But that, it's,
It is a different.
yeah.
I was events and community development manager at the DCC, and we had this community events absolutely roll in community, and then you've got the major and premier events which are about attracting visitors to town. So
Yeah.
there's a place for all.
Yeah, but I think that there definitely is a place to do something for our own community and celebrate that.
That comes through our framework, a big framework.
It does.
I think the landscape's going to change a bit with the new hall coming. There will be potential for more, and we should actually drive some more real localised events down there.
We see, like I'm also on a Otago community trip, I'd say, and there's lots of events like Bannockburn get a lot of, there's a lot of events at Bannockburn, not so much here in Cromwell that I can think of, but so I think you're absolutely right, Wally, that it's once there's that facility, it's just going to go.
We're not used to having a hall, so we're not used to thinking about events that be at the hall.
Like the NZSA travels, the ballet travels, there's all these art and rural spaces.
Yeah, and the ballet, they perform on a postage stamp, they do, yeah.
Okay, so
We're happy to change the name.
happy to change the name.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you, supportive. All right, this one might not be quite so easy. Promotions grants only, so we're not talking community grants on this one. Tightening the self-sustaining requirement. So we touched on it before, right? The policy currently encourages organisers to become self-sustaining over a period of 3 years. What we're suggesting is that actually it becomes a bit firmer in its language. So not just encouraging, but almost insisting, but that we extend the runway. So it becomes a 5-year runway rather than a 3-year runway. So there's more of a period of time that people can go from being completely reliant to being completely self-sufficient.
And if you see them not, after they've hit the 3-year period or beyond, if you see them not really getting there, what assistance are you going to give to, help them become more sustainable? So, I mean, it's I understand, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But what can we do then to assist them to actually find the right avenues to get more funding? Is that going to be something that you guys would actually, the council would take on?
We kind of have it already, doesn't it? In terms of
As much as we can.
as much as we can.
Down one year.
No.
No.
We don't have an events role as such, it's more just,
But it comes back to,
content advice.
yeah, absolutely. And it comes back to, portion of this that is leading portion of it. But there's also that connecting people in with like the grants clinics that Rebecca runs and things like that we always have promoted and encouraging people to go and attend. Looking at how you can draw in sponsorship and connecting them with other event organisers who've been successful in doing that. So we run these groups to bring people together. Some do it, some don't.
Well, Cromwell's got lots of places. You've got the gate, the example, I feel like I'll give an example of other about the OCT is a similar kind of concept, and the one that I really struggled with was the midwinter event, which is the Octagon Lantern Parade. And they now have moved into First Church, and it's a particular event where it's always free. And it's some of the stuff that you were talking about. The $5 fee is a barrier to some. So they've put in place a mechanism to to allow, you know, like I can put $20 in the payment for tickets for 4, you know, but it's a, you need to ask for that. And so it's not you just can rock up. So there are some, like if Light Up becomes a ticket event, there are some families in this community no longer be able to access it. But it was
Sort of point as well.
more sustainable. So it's,
I think for an event to become self-sustaining, you either have to up the ticket price for the people that go, turn it into mass tourism with still a ticket price, or get sponsors. And yeah, I'm not sure, I don't have experience myself about the nuts and bolts of running these events, but I'm sure the promotions group do pretty well at handling a decent, you know, headline sponsor.
And I'm sure they probably are still always looking for sponsors.
Mm.
They will be.
Difficult though, isn't it? Because when you worry, if you worry about the people who can't afford it, and I do, because that's where I come from. But if you're going to say, well, you can go to this for free, but you have actually paid for it already with your rates for your rent, and you didn't have a choice. So don't forget that, because you have a choice, you don't go, that sucks.
Yeah.
But at least you had that choice. If you are tight, hard up against the wall, then the cost of going to that thing shouldn't be imposed on you through your rates or your rent. So.
I think one of the things about the Cromwell Promotions Group, I mean, their events are, you know, the two main ones that we have our community really behind, the fireworks and Light Up Winter. I think they do have good sponsors, and I think they do have the capacity to run those, but their biggest costs are their paid people, because they pay people's wages. That's the thing that always means that they are constantly needing our support, because there's so many organisations that won't grant you money to support wage payment. So that's the model that they've set up for how their organisation works. So yes, there's a whole lot of really fantastic volunteers within that organisation, but there's also always a couple of paid positions within that organisation. And so when you're thinking about that self-sustaining requirement and what happens to the events, if we don't continue supporting them. So we know that there's those 2 premium events every year that we probably do want to continue supporting, because just, I suppose, you know, they are really important events in our calendar for Cromwell. But is it that we need to move away from tightening that self-sustaining requirement, or is it that the promotions group needs to think about their model and how they fund themselves to be able to pay wages to people? That means it isn't costing our community money, and that's a tricky one.
Can I just add to that? I think they have already thought about that, and although there's probably no evidence of that coming through just yet, they are actually, you know, in the process of actually trying to get extra sponsors and so on, so that they don't rely so much on the promotions grants.
Possibly Foxton, especially about the length of the runway, is 5 years more appropriate for that to take place rather than the 3.
Well, it's hard. 3 years. 3 years goes pretty quickly. So I think you'd have to give them as much time as you possibly could, and you know.
And that 3 years, it could range for 2 of them as well.
Yeah.
Well, and this is my 8th year on the community board, and they've essentially been granted a similar amount of money every year over those 8 years. And yes, the things that they are doing have changed slightly, and I know that they've got much better at finding sponsors and other sources of funding, but it's still been around that $90,000 that has been granted to them every year over that period of time.
Yeah.
Costs have gone up, of course, in that time.
Yeah, and sorry, just for clarification, I'm just looking at Ali. We think it's actually gone up.
It has.
Because from my memory, it started at about $60,000 and first round.
Yeah, they were sitting around 80, around post-COVID, about year one of the LTP, they got 110-ish,
Yeah,
and then it been 95 for the last couple of years.
so it's felt like it's trended upward.
And just as an outsider, I've been here for a year. Obviously, there's such a big grant like that does it. I mean, the opportunity cost is obviously no one else comes in and wants to put their name something, because we know, everybody knows probably it's such a big grant that there's only going to be one. But so does it crush the opposition, or does it quell other ideas on what could be something else for Cromwell or so on and so on? I mean, if the hall's open, there could be events down to that, but with such a magnitude of grant, and if it's not in perpetuity, but it pretty much seems like it's in perpetuity, it almost denies anyone else from starting out thinking, I've actually got a really good idea, but I can't compete because this is so entrenched that there's no way.
And I think that is how some people look at it, that's a grant that goes to the Cromwell Promotions Group. Their name even fits with the name of the grant, that it does tend to be that's where that goes. And of course the community grant, the other grant that's come up, hasn't been there all of that time, and so that is the one that's allowed other people to come in and bring other ideas and to ask for funding for other things. But it's a really difficult conversation, because our community, as Tim said, you don't want to have a situation where our local community can't attend those local events, where you might have families that, even if it looks like it's only a $5 entry fee, that actually that $5 entry fee is probably the difference between a family being able to go or not being able to go, particularly as you know that the kid's going to want something from one of the food trucks or whatever. So your budget for being able to attend is probably not going to stretch to both things. I mean, and there are other organisations. So there's like the Mums for Mums group, and they're doing some really lovely stuff at the moment as well. But they're not. I don't even know if they know that they could potentially come for a community grant to do some of the stuff that they're doing. You know, how do we ensure that people do know what it is that they can apply for?
Suggested to them, because that's through Plunkett, right? And Plunkett were unsuccessful at council, but I suggested that the Cromwell specific application that they consider coming to the board, and it's for that broker, because when they explained how it was driven by the community, I thought it might be something that you guys want to have a look at.
What about slicing up a wee bit as a startup fund or something, having a little bit available as a new event kickstart or something?
Trying to move on to my next question, actually.
Really?
One thing I want to point out is that we have had.
Hang on, go back, wait, we still got to answer.
Yeah, don't show it yet.
Don't show it that yet.
We've had some really good examples of new opportunities going to a board and saying, hey, look, if you can, we want to come to you for 3 years for funding, and by then we'll have this event self-sustaining. And we've had 1 or 2 events that have done that down in Vincent.
Yep.
And but they've been a commercially run event. Yeah. So slightly different model to your community group model, but commercially run event. And I think that commercial element, it really motivates them to become profitable and self-sustaining.
So
What's the next?
direction on that one?
I think it's a good idea. I think otherwise it's just a handout. It's the dole payment. You get comfortable taking it, and then it gets too hard to approach. If you know from the outset, that is diminishing or has got a finite timeline, I don't think that's detrimental. There's exceptional circumstances or it's not necessarily that comfortable. Yeah, so I think that's a good way to say, look, so we can keep cycling these things through and we don't get stale and do it just because we have done it. Then that's definitely a good option. 5 years is probably more reasonable though for
There's another whole discussion about the tangible steps that get put in place towards proving that you're going self-sustaining. Because if there was no signs of improvement after 3 years, you'd pull it then rather than wait to 5, right?
Yeah,
Mm.
maybe a bit more around that then that would be.
I think that's the important detail in saying yay or nay to that headline.
And again, I mean, that would be, staff will bring you all the information they have on hand, and that would be a full decision for you to go, they're not moving in the direction of requested that they should.
And it all starts with the first presentation as well, right, from the person trying to run the event, and how well that's presented and whether they can convince the board that it is going to go places.
There's nodding in the room here. Bob, Anna, are you in agreement around this one?
Yeah, I think 5 years is a much more is the right step. But I agree with Wally's thinking that if you've got a group for a particular event that you can't see movement on after 3 years, you'd be starting to consider whether or not it's, you know, whether they've actually got the wherewithal to be able to make those changes that they need to make.
You might be lenient if it's snowed on their event 2 years in a row.
Yeah. COVID was a really good example, right? Where there were some exceptions made.
Yeah.
So.
But it's got maybe like the accountability, you know, we get the grants out and they come back with a report. That kind of thing, that cycle just gets a bit more stringent down.
Yeah. Actually, that's great.
It can be challenging cycles though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
depending on when it falls also.
Okay, now we can go to the next slide later. Okay, so I will caveat these. These are other ideas that have been raised over this kind of current period. We've got this policy in place. These are not necessarily staff recommendations, but we will kind of talk you through where they sit. So promotions grants only, once again, should there be a cap on how much a single entity or group can secure in the first round of funding? And the second follow-up question to that is, should there be a cap on how much a board can allocate in its first round of funding? Essentially, meaning that you do leave some money for round 2. And if you were to say, you know, one group can only take no more than 70% from of the total fund in round 1, it wouldn't stop them being able to come back in round 2.
Yeah.
Which is not silly. However, it just makes a lot of extra work for them. I think.
And us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking.
Otherwise, just a communication thing on first in, best. You can come to the second round, but you really need to be in the first round when you cap out if you want the full amount. Second round, you might get what's left. So it's either or, you know, communicate that better to them, or.
I guess this one is kind of driven by, well, one, this board, and you've got a group that knows the system really well and knows how to get the money out of the system, right? It also happens in other wards as well, where there are some really well-organised groups that know how to secure money. And then we have really good options that pop up and would have been perfect. And we just had this round in Vincent and there was no money there.
And it does sometimes depend, like your event or whatever you do, and which round it fits better into funding.
They may not quite agree.
Yeah. So that's pretty disadvantageous, isn't it? If you timing's out, the money's gone.
Yeah.
Nice. It's a good, much more equitable.
Possibly fairer.
Yeah. And Bob, any view on this one?
No, I agree with what's being said in the room.
Yeah, I'm the same. If you can hear me, can you?
Yep, we've got you, Bob.
I lost the connection for a while, but yes, I heard what was said in the room and I agree with that. Fine.
Thank you. So next one's promotions grants, once again, multi-year grants. So should a board be able to allocate multi-year promotions grants in the first year of an LTP, as they can community grants? Now, this has been requested of us in the past. I will caveat this with staff do not recommend this. What we do know in the events and promotion space is things can change really quickly one year to another. And what might have been a really good proposal in year one, actually when the event ran, didn't stack up and did not deliver what was expected. So this is not supported by staff, but it's a question that's being asked. So we'll put it to you.
No, fair enough.
I don't think
There's a danger.
I don't think there's benefits to that. There's more dangers than there are benefits. So no.
Oh, that speaks to my formalising the thing before, right? Yeah. Promotions group has a track record, but it's fair comment that doesn't promote looking elsewhere for money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, obviously, it's not only promotions, your promotions group that are in this, it's all promotion grants across the district. That
Yeah, well, that's just it. Yeah.
Anna, Bob,
Yeah, I'd agree with that, certainly, yeah.
Yep, same.
thank you. Timing. So again, only promotions grants. So the this one's a little hard to explain without having a whiteboard. So essentially 6 months or 3 to 6 months before the year itself is actually in play. So the grant round of March, where you make a decision, motions rounds is
Closes in March,
Closes.
decision in May.
in March, decision in May is for funding for events that happen from the 1st of July of that same year, right? We've had in the past suggestions that actually, no, you shouldn't be doing it until the financial year is approved, and essentially you wouldn't be therefore able to receive applications and make a decision until about September. So the round you've just done now, which in a events and promotions world, most likely rules out anyone trying to do anything this side of Christmas because they don't have the time frame they need to be able to book up things and get things in place. So once again, the staff recommendation on this is actually the timing, while it's not perfect and it's probably never be perfect for everyone, this is as good as we've been able to get it over the period we've been doing this grant.
It works the best it can, isn't it, for what it is?
That's our view.
Well, have you had any real complaints?
When we tried to do it the other way, when we tried to do it the other way, it actually got really, really difficult.
So maybe
Some of the smaller events don't think that far, but it's then us being proactive to remind them, like the St. Patrick's Fete, you say, oh, you should get your application in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so if it's.
And they sound like
Next time maybe shorter do it.
That's right.
Yeah.
St. Berthand's one, that pissed down last time.
Yeah. We're in the raincoat.
Yeah.
Later.
And it's always subject to.
Yes, it's always subject to budget approval. That's right. So annual plan or long-term plan approval. So, and applicants always know that. They're always that you're not, this won't happen or that won't be confirmed until budget's approved. Okay, cool. Anna, Bob, okay with that? Leave as is?
Yeah,
Status quo.
Yeah. The question's been put to us, should we define who can access a grant? Do they have to be a registered entity? Or, as it currently is, the status quo, the applicant can show that they have the capability and resources to be able to deliver what they say they can, and they give the staff confidence in their application, and they also give the board confidence in their submission and application that they can deliver. Or is it the board's view, actually, no, this has to be a registered entity in a formal sense?
No, I think we plugged an important gap of not being that formal. Like the Central Lakes Trust, for example, you have to be a charitable trust, don't you?
Yep.
Which that excludes so many people.
Yep.
And that might be the difference between that startup or not, because you don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
OCT allows you under 1,000. you can apply up to $1,000 being an informal group. I do think for us, we should put in a criteria that the entity needs a bank account for amounts over 10.
Oh, yeah.
Amounts over 10. Oh, so you can put up to 10 in someone's personal account?
We'll work with them. It might be a receipt basis or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's important. A little bit organic with startups, for example. Yeah.
What examples have you had?
You guys, you did the Wellness Expo last year,
Yeah.
which was a group of women in different businesses. So Lower Menaburn Reserve Working Groups, another example. So groups like that.
I think we have to. We also have to, put our trust in the staff, that the staff have done the homework as well.
Some of the other boards have suggested a tier within that as well. Now differing of needing a bank account that has 2 signatories rather than 1 for amounts around 5. Are you okay with 10,000 being the first gate, or would you like that extra level in the middle as
And the
well?
chair goes on. Fair call though. There aren't many instances that wouldn't have 2 signatories once the bank account of it, so.
I do think
How do you deal with it logistically? Like if someone asks you for 10 grand, if it's made up of 5 different bills, can they just send you those bills and you pay those bills?
We not generally. I did it for
That is a
one.
safer way to deal with
I did it for one applicant, but it's a lot of work,
it.
and it's like a payment voucher system rather than a purchase order system, which is our usual way of paying grants. So it's a lot more work. If it's possible, I just want to make it as transparent and right in terms of audit trail for the ratepayer.
See, audit trail, if you had the receipt in stock, rather than just saying, here's 10 grand, here's how you go.
And that it
It would
was,
be more work, but it's more robust.
and we're not like we were considering an application. That's what triggered it. Was there was an application for just over that $10,000 amount from an informal group, and it's valid group. No, it's and it's just I was thinking, how am I going to actually pay this? Because to ask an individual to pay and we reimburse is a bit of a tougher call when it's that sort of.
Yeah, I wasn't saying get them to pay, like you could pay, but they receive an invoice, they pass it on to you and you pay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just need
They're
to
not out of
get
pocket.
that wire up in our system.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And the purchase order would have to be raised for that.
For us.
Supplier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever admin needs to happen, I know finance department love their admin for PO numbers and whatnot, but it's just their job.
You're looking at the
it's our job.
Yeah, it's your job.
It's tricky.
If it's prohibitive.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we're talking about.
I
Okay,
think the 2 signature thing actually makes it. I just know bank accounts are getting really hard, and so I think we need to just have caution on that 2 signature thing.
yeah, we can investigate that a bit more before we lock that in.
Yeah.
And of course, all these things have to go up to council. Confirmation, so we've got a bit of work to do off the back of these. Infrastructure, this all feels familiar. So promotion.
Personnel, I'm gonna jump online instead of here, so
No.
redistribute some small people. But
Promotion
I don't know if
grant.
infrastructure fits into promotions grants. I mean, and that was part of our conversation already today, wasn't it? That surely that is a community grant if you're having infrastructure that might have
Or
a wider
signage.
community benefit in the future rather than as a promotions grant.
But
Yes, so the reason we put it here as promotions grants is because we've had applications through the promotions grants process for things like sound systems, lighting, fencing, etc. We would not, so what we're suggesting is that you probably wouldn't do this because it creates a significant amount of admin in terms of community board retaining ownership to then be able to share it with others of the community. But what we do see happen in the community grant space is there can often be requests to be able to buy things that the community group wants. And we've never declined, well, essentially, staff recommendation wouldn't be that you decline that. It's more around the event stuff, which happens to generally be more random one-off type things. It's like a one-off purchase for something that may be used for one event. That was kind of like.
The question is like the one we had today, who retains ownership and gets to use the stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's alarm bells for me.
Yeah.
And if sound systems are, yeah, whatever. The gazebo you'd probably see up at a campground at New Year's. The floating pontoon, great idea if it was presented in such a way as it was going to be owned by the boat club and stored by the boat club, that sort of stuff. And there was going to be consents in
And it had all the consents with it.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't want to see that gazebo.
Somebody say,
Even if the gazebo used.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm getting a general sense of unsupportive. That's cool. Thank you. Right.
Different if it was attached to a club or something. Just we need to know
A bit
what the end result is in context.
Anything else that's either been prompted through that conversation or anything else you want to get off your chest in regards to grants, community grants, promotions grants, or promotions and events grants as we might call them in the future?
Setting the level of grant, is that a public consultation thing or is that a council table thing?
No, so it comes to you as the community board. And so we'll bring some staff guidance. It's the you as a board make a recommendation as to what the grant policy would be.
So if we're going to recommend an increase to council to be a chunk of undeniable community support behind it, right? Because it's going to affect their rates.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm not sure where Alex, you might know. But a significance perspective is there.
For these, okay, we check it.
But at what level?
Right, so, yeah, I'm not sure at what level.
But I mean, it could be, it could be weaved into the LTP and it could be consulted on.
Yeah.
And there's variations obviously because different community boards have.
Yeah, different sizes.
So we have to be clear and that was, and it might be particular to the Cromwell community. And then if we go through that process and then it would be adopted or whatever, when the LTP is adopted in June of next year and come into place 1st of July 2025.
So you really need to demonstrate demand. So other, one or two other boards have wanted to increase pools where there hasn't been the demand, they haven't been oversubscribed. And that's tricky to show demand.
And we're not in that position anyway, so it's not a lot of point in trying to.
Same time, there's only that 11 grand available, which cuts down a fair bit of aspiration potentially.
But we didn't really have, we couldn't really give it away.
and some other councils have a, they call a major events fund for a district-wide benefit event, like that could be a way of some events that come to this region, this part of the district, that would have that wider benefit if there was something council level would ease the demand on the individual community.
I'll go back and find when it's triggered for you.
No, let's just assume it is triggered. It's just, no, I think we're picking up for the night. It's not.
But when we come to you for the LTP in that October workshops, that's time that the boards has a view to say, look, we actually think our promotions grants should be X plus and our community grants should be X plus. That's the thing that we can read into.
That's like a free ride of consultation, is that taken on the existing consultation?
Yeah. We know really who was going to be, so she's She's pushing double the.
Lovely. So I am looking forward to a quiet weekend this
Oh, sorry, I've got a quick question actually. Dylan, if we, or sorry, at the point where we actually advertise that, you know, the applications are open, if you like, do we at that point publicise what's actually in the pot or what's left in the pot?
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
You do. Okay.
Yeah. And even when I go around all the funding clinics, I say it again, Bob, and I usually say, like for Alex, I'll say it has $120,000 in its community grants, of which 80 usually goes to ADMI. So people know there's a 40, you know, and so I catch it like that.
Okay.
So people know it's not a $120,000 pot.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Cool. All right, next slide, Lena. I think we're done.
And you have asked the last two boards to.
Oh, yes, thank you for prompting me. I suspect I don't know the answer before I even ask the question, but I will ask the question because it's only fair because I've asked the other two boards the same question. Well, between Tim and I, we've asked the question of the boards. What is the board's view? Should grants be removed completely from the board, given the financial economic times we find ourselves in?
Cousin in the ocean at $10 on my roads.
It's Wally's view. Now, what's our total grant fund for?
1%.
Yeah, so the total overall is almost half, well, it is roughly $100 million of our total rates is in grants wrapped up between community boards and also council, so essentially 1% of total rates. So we are in obviously a period where, as we've discussed in the past, the community is unlikely to accept significant rate increases. Okay? So grants is a part of the conversation that is up at the moment.
Could have asked this first and then not hit this one.
Yeah. They don't want to, you know, so you've got obviously at this board table, you've got a significant promotions grant fund, and I'm not quite sure the community grant, about 50, isn't it? Oh, that's 50 earlier. So I guess what's the view of the board? What happens if grants actually exceed grants?
I think in the context of Light Up Winter, and in the context of the swimming pool, right? Dave, how much does it cost? Like $40 per person if they paid their way at the swimming pool?
Yes.
So if everyone paid their way at Light Up Winter, it'd probably be like $30 a head or something. So I think it's on the people to get their ass out of the lounge and go to Light Up Winter, since they're paying for it on their rates bill. That's my view anyway.
I wouldn't put it quite like that, but however, having said that, I do agree with Wally. I think that what the promotion group does, I think, would be travesty to lose for Cromwell and the Greater District. It's become, as Bob was saying, it's become a bit like the Blossom Festival. I mean, I'm sure that they would be devastated if the Blossom Festival didn't happen. And I think Cromwell in this area will also be devastated if the fireworks and Light Up Winter didn't happen. And unfortunately, at the moment, that does mean that the grants are an essential part of getting it off the ground. And I think you'd probably find that most of the community would not want to lose those events. And they may very well be happy to pay $10 or whatever it is on the rates to actually be able to go. That's what I said.
My view is, I think Cheryl summed it up pretty well there, actually. But I think there's also the fact that quite a few people don't realise that it is actually on the rates bill. But anyway, I think Cheryl summed it up. That's my.
I think we lose a lot if we lose that ability to give out grants. It's I mean, with the conversation we've had about self-sustainable events and self-sustainable organisations, I think that's a work toward. But I think that our grants, because you don't have to be that charitable trust, you don't have to have that status, that an organisation that comes along or a group that comes along saying, hey, we've got this fabulous idea and we want to try and do this, that they can look to raise funds through us is probably a good thing. In terms of affordability, is it more affordable that we spread the cost of things like our the Light Up Winter and the fireworks and the Blossom Festival, which I know isn't ours, but same, you know, when grants are given to those community events that are really treasured by our communities and it's spread across everybody, rather than being a burden on a small group of people, is probably a good way to look at it. Yeah, I would like to see us being able to continue to give grants if it's possible.
Someone also mentioned that it's a valid link between us and the community. I mean, obviously as board members, we're out in the community, but to actually get people into the setting, into the room to have that involvement as well, it's just quite expensive, but it's a touchstone there.
We particularly see that in the community grant space.
Yeah, I was just in at Dunedin, and especially it was the amount of community grant, that what you learn about the community through the community grants and assist other, fix other things. You know, you can help them navigate council processes.
But there's also when I mean, by allowing these events, some, you know, some of our community are strapped with cash, but there will be plenty of people there that spend, and that in itself keeps other, you know, like your food trucks and your things, keeps them going. So it's, you know, the whole thing is a spin-off by having that one event, that the rest of the community do actually get some form of advantage out of being there.
Sometimes it's a small amount of money. Large amount of effort.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really connected to the new purpose of local government, supporting economic growth and just.
We're quite off the mark.
Sorry, Anna, can I just clarify your comments in relation to the Light Up Winter, the fireworks and Blossy? Was that kind of suggesting that they should sit more at a council level grant fund?
No, it wasn't. It was just making the point that these are things that our communities really treasure. So the events that we manage to give funding to are things that have become treasured in our community because they've been able to be run, not because they need to be sat at a council level. And I know I'm just looking across the district a bit further than just Cromwell when I was thinking about the ones that are the big main stays of the type of stuff that happens. And of course, we want to see further and different and wider and stuff happening in our district. So, but those other comments about the economic benefits of having those events as well, the people who do come and stay, the people who then spend money in our towns over the weekend of that event, you know, those are all really important things too.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Sorry, just wanted to clarify. Okay, so just to confirm, so from here, we've got one more community board, which is Maniatoa on Thursday. Then we'll be workshopping with council next week. We will then wrap up all that information we've received, go investigate any extra pieces we need to, and take a revised policy to council for approval in October. Essentially, presuming we get approval from council, then the new policy is in play from that date. And obviously we'll update the boards as we go. Grants round will function under that new policy and obviously we'll do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you.
Oh, wait, it's more.
It's more. It's who's in the background.
Hurry up, Dave. Are we still open?
Is that their lane?
Yeah, yes.
So is this, is this sort of ideas?
Yeah, I'll do a bit of an intro. Yeah. Yeah. Just
Oh, it's empty. You know, you stood up at the table and everybody leaves.
That's true.
I probably have to leave. Indian will please know the long standing thing commitment.
Okay, very important. I'll get, what time are you thinking?
I'd like to put it at 6. Probably 5.
I'll get to meetings done by then.
Oh, that's what kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we got people online too, still.
No, by the way, I'm just going to get them back.
Oh, that's all, but.
Ah, I must have thought the show was over.
Oh,
It sounds just begun.
Yeah, yes.
No, like you just had the taste of. Yeah, use the main attraction. Yes, right.
they're going to be there at 5:30.
Oh, yeah. Can't be
Might
serious.
stop.
It's not
Get
the
it
choice.
A little vino. Are we still live, Wayne?
Mm-hmm.
Hello to the members of the public.
There's one watching.
Oh, hello, staff member.
I can't tell at this stage. We'll have to run the report, which is afterwards.
Yeah.
Your staff members.
The electrics will be.
Oh, you can.
Staff member.
Oh, okay.
No.
I'm just.
No, they all run away. Yes, they do. Just because they've joined.
Oh,
Technically in between.
I did good that you got that, did that.
It's certainly for the public. That's it.
oh, okay.
Like instance, that's it.
I think so.
Well, right. We might need to up the grant.
Sorry.
Maybe they, if you did send out the email that there was another
Yeah.
shop, they might have thought that this was the end. Maybe,
I won't take it personally.
no, but maybe I was thinking maybe I should have said workshops as opposed to. Oops.
Can you still serious charging?
When's our next meeting?
Oh, it's
5th of November.
Oh, you mean for the community? It's something like that.
November.
That's good.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's good.
So I could always call another one, couldn't I?
Sarah's coming back.
Yeah, serious about coming back.
Yeah.
There's a limit, really.
Yeah.
Right to the big table here.
Yeah. Right.
Come on,
Join the party, add to the numbers. Yeah. Yeah.
bring yourself the name there.
Heather is back.
Oh, okay, cool.
And
Hey, I'm back.
There's something I said, everyone took off.
Oh, it's a long time to sit and it's staring at a screen where you can't actually see anybody.
This-
We've got adding some numbers.
Let's kick off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kick off. Fine, thank you. We'll make a start. So today I just want to have more of a discussion type workshop with the community board around, as you'll recall, last meeting, Lou, and I discussed that I will be picking up the operating model and should still be sponsoring the development of the hall. And I just wanted to socialise some of the progress that has happened over the last sort of 6 weeks in developing this operating model, and also start socialising some of and as part of our long-term plan, we're going to start looking from, I guess what gets rebuilt. So I think it's just important discussion here because we have to have the discussions councils an international exhibition that's coming in, and there was, there's been various cultural and heritage grants that have been available in New Zealand for exhibition centres to be able to apply for, and you might exhibit some of those, I guess some of those wares through the museum over, they might be on sort of 3 monthly cycles or something to that effect. Generally speaking, the runway for doing those things is 1 to 2 years. So hence that's why the front loading of our revenue is really light in year one. It's not, I guess, because we're just going to be sort of sitting there, but it is, year one is about getting the facility up and running and getting the community used to it and understanding all of that. The next funding stream would be around commercial revenue, and I've just sort of talked around commercial leases, say for example, we lease out a cafe or something to that effect. And then generally a fourth revenue stream where funding can come from for community facilities is around that retail revenue. So in there's the proposal for things like a cinema, selling tickets to that would be sort of those one-off type sales that come with that. So that just gives a little bit of a, I guess, a snapshot of, and again, I don't want to go sort of too far into it. If you want, we can unpack a wee bit. I've got some more numbers behind the scenes, but I just want to give a little bit of a feel of other similar community and event centres around New Zealand and how they've come up off the boils and their sort of revenue funding streams, and what that looks like. A couple of key funding channels that I've started to look at from how are we going to fund this thing from 2026 when we I guess get the keys to start running it. And then not onto the next slide just yet, Wayne, but in the next slide we are going to go into what some indicative costs look like. And just to get a bit of a feel, so the community board's aware of some of these costs, and I guess we can start socialising this within the council and adding these costs into the LTP. Given we will need council to adopt the LTP sort of by 1 July next year, it is important we start to look at some of these costs and get those in there. So if we can jump to the next slide, Wayne. Based on similar events centres around New Zealand from around about that 3,000 square metres in size, and they all have varying uses, whether it's a town hall or an exhibition centre or a cafe or a restaurant. Generally speaking, and let's say within about 10%, an event centre of this size costs about 1.7 million a year to run. That includes staffing costs, building maintenance, utilities and energy, essentially all the general costs of running an organisation. Of this, yes, sorry, no, insurance is excluded from that figure. Yes, sorry, that's a really good question. Also excluded is our debt repayments. So as I guess as part of the resolution when this was passed, is that 20 million initially be funded by debt until the land sales coming forward. So using round numbers, that's going to be about $1 million a year roughly in servicing costs of that. And obviously if those land sales move forward, that'll come off considerably quicker. That also excludes the depreciation costs that we're sort of looking at as well. Depreciation at this point has been broken down into essentially three categories: that are short, medium and long-term depreciation. So your long-term depreciation would be up to 50 years. That would say we need a new hall in 50 years, for example. Medium term would be, say, in 15 to 25 years, we need a good refurbishment because of just general wear and tear on the building. And then short-term depreciation is around that 10 years, which is things like your technology, electrical things that have sort of slightly higher use and higher turnover. And so we're just sort of currently working through those costs to be able to present back to the board and council to be able to, I guess, understand how much we might want to depreciate and over what period of time. But I guess a key number there that we'll be starting to look at through, whether it's through our property budgets or through my budgets, is around those operating costs of 1.7 million and how that might look within our LTP, adding to that just basic servicing costs for, what's likely going to be the first couple of years at least while we develop the property of servicing that debt of roughly $900 to $1 million on top of that as well, and then the depreciation piece that's coming from it too. So I think a good number to have in the back of your mind to operate this whole around about that 1.7 is your base operating. And then the other things which are sort of up in the air a little bit right now around debt servicing and depreciation. But it would probably be prudent to be thinking around about sort of $1 million for those two. And as we work up those financial models, we'll get a lot clearer on that. But it is important that the next time that you'll probably see this in a workshop will be around that November period when, or October, November period when we are doing our LTP roadshows and workshops. So I just wanted this to, I guess, be socialised so that you can understand some of these costs that are coming as other projects are coming along as well. The other thing that I've sort of been looking at over the last sort of couple of months is different operating models and notice how these facilities are governed in New Zealand. And if we jump to the next slide, please, thank you. Just broken down really nice and simply here is there's generally three ways that these things are run. Either fully council run, so think about our swimming pools, for example, they are fully council run under myself, under community experience. The Cromwell pool, again, nice round number, does cost us about the same as what the hall would be to run. It's about 1.7 million a year to run. And then, there's a wee bit of debt on the pool and a bit of depreciation as well. But roughly the pool is about 1.7 million a year to run, which is our plant, staffing, electrical, all of that kind of stuff. It sort of fairly quickly adds up.
What's its revenue?
The
revenue for the pool?
Revenue for Cromwell pool now is 420, just gone. Yeah. And that's broken down by admissions, which are about 2/3, and then 1/3 is a sort of school. Yeah, that's how that works. And so obviously it's been built up over time to get to a similar, hopefully a similar revenue figure for the hall as well. Over probably 5 years. The next option would be some kind of CCO, which would essentially, being a council controlled organisation, is everybody sort of familiar with what they are? It's sort of, it's right.
Any examples locally, right?
No. Dunedin's probably the closest with Dunedin City Holdings. And they've got a number of companies under that, like Delta or Dunedin Venues Group, sitting under that. And essentially what that would be a governing board that operates as arm's length from council and run as its own entity. From what I've seen around New Zealand and over in Australia, generally there are a couple of elected members who are part of the choosing of the board, and then you would have staff like, say, me or Peter sort of sitting on the board as a regular connection to council and overseeing that. And then under it would just operate like a normal sort of corporate structure where you'd have a director, I guess key personnel as managers running that organisation. That's quite a common way of event centres being run in New Zealand. They operate under their own sort of policy. They have their own, I guess, approach to business, and then generally speaking, the council will give them an operating grant to fund that. And if we even take our own facilities as an example, you can probably at maturity use a 2/3, 1/3. So the Cromwell pool's about that 1.7 million a year to run. We offset that by about 400,000 in revenue, and the ratepayers paying sort of a little bit over 2/3, but sort of that's 1.2-ish million is what the ratepayers paying to keep that Cromwell pool open. I'd probably suggest it would be similar for the Cromwell Hall to be able to operate. Obviously that grant would need to be higher in years 1, 2 and 3 while that debt was coming off. And that would be obviously a conversation here a little bit further on once we're clearer on some of the numbers and what that structure might look like from an operating model. And then depending on how fast land sales come through and how we might want to fund that debt. But essentially, a CCO would require some kind of grant. I would suggest at least in the first 5 years, if not forever. The models that I'm looking at do suggest that would continue, that it would probably cap at a 1/3 offset in revenue, 2/3 offset by rates. And that's sort of based on the research that Russian did. quite a few months ago, and another couple of models that I've looked around New Zealand too. And then the third option, which I just thought I'd throw in there, but I haven't seen anybody that's sort of been able to run it successfully. Some people have tried this in the past, where essentially you hand over the full building to a facilities manager, essentially, to operate as a lease, and they would pay you a commercial lease. So say, for example, our rate to run this facility was 1.7 million. You know, you would try your best to hand that over to a commercial operator at 1.7 million to try and offset those costs, but that's a massive grab when you want people like Taylor Swift coming all the time to be able to pay for that, you know. And so the CCO, just talking to, I guess, my equivalents around New Zealand and Australia, has been the most popular. And just, I asked them sort of key questions around what's the easiest way to get external funding? What's the easiest way to be nimble as an organisation when it comes to growth? What would be the best structure to grow and change? And then from a resilience point of view, say if COVID happened again, what would be the best structure for the community? And so things like external funders there, obviously a council-run organisation like Paul, it's very rare that funders will look at us to help offset any operational costs. They might for, you know, say a school might come in and, you know, want to train some kids, and they might get an external grant to help pay for those fees, as an example, but it's very rare that we will get sort of some kind of ongoing funding. A CCO, one of the key, I guess, key drivers of the director would be to go find external funding. So it would be about, hey, I'd love to have, let's just take an exhibition, for example. I'd love to have the Batmobile exhibition come down, and the Arts and Heritage grant, when that was available, would be something you could apply for to exhibit that. You would get some of the fees to be able to exhibit that, and then obviously the exhibition would get some of the money as well. And that for a lot of event centres, especially that operate under a CCO, is up to about 50% of their revenue. So if you didn't go up the CCO route, that is quite a bit of money that's being left on the table. You know, I guess it would be not just a council-run entity. And then obviously an operating lease, it would be a hard one depending, because you're handing so much over to them, it would be a hard one to know the kind of money they were going to go after, or the grants they were going to go after, and you'd lose a little bit of that control of what is going to be a community facility. When it comes to being nimble, obviously a council-run organisation, we have to, I guess, abide by all of our own policies and things like that. So if things change, you know, the quickness of, say, Taylor Swift did fly to Queenstown and we wanted to put on a show for her, it would probably be harder for us to be able to do that. If I take Paul, for example, generally there are bookings every day. And so if somebody came along and said to me today, hey, I want to build a Cromwell pull out tomorrow, unless we moved a hell of a lot of things, it would be a really challenging thing to do. Whereas CCO is a little bit more nimble like that. They sort of operate under, I guess, somewhat their own governance and their own structure to be able to move and shift around as much as, I guess, as much as the governing board allowed. From a growth point of view, again, a CCO is able to be nimble enough to introduce its own policies, to extend out to other things. And then from a resilience point of view, we've still got that connection back to council. So if something like COVID did happen again, they needed to rely on increased funding because revenue had dried up, that would obviously be a higher level of resilience, where if you had something like an operating lease, and given that commercial operating lease would be so early into its, I guess early into its trading, probably wouldn't have built up any reserves if something happened in the first 5 years. So there's just a sort of a nice, quick, easy thing to ask a few questions of a few people about around what that could look like. And I just wanted to share this with the board as early as possible so you can see some of the sort of thinking come to life, and you can provide a little bit of input. Can we go next slide? Thanks, Wayne.
Just got a quick question.
Yeah, go for it.
Would a CCO
Yeah.
necessarily get tied up in running a cafe and a cinema, or would a CCO potentially sublease that as an operator? Those two little entities that they might be little, they might be significant, but the cinema and the cafe could be operating lease under the CCO.
I'd suggest that would be the best way for the CCO to operate is to have subleases and then reporting those subleases back into the governing board.
The CCO is very much centre management, overall management.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so it could be an option that it runs the CCO and then you have 3 or 4 subleases under there, you know, the auditorium, the cafe, the cinema as examples.
And by the way, you don't choose, there's a museum going in there.
Yeah.
And tied in with the discretionary, who gets the cafe sort of thing. Hey?
Yeah.
Ideally, they're plans.
Yeah, that would be the idea, exactly. But I guess having them all reported up to that CCO and into that director regularly, that, you know, you would have some kind of cohesion there. And there are a lot of places that operate like that, you know, and you could look around town here at some of the cafe operators that might, you know, you put that out in tender, and I'm sure there'd be people interested to tender something like that. So, yeah. Any other questions sort of so far? Just on a couple of those things. Conscious of time as well, eh? Just sort of moving. Let me just go to the different one. Yeah. So just I guess the next piece here is around different uses, and the facility is 3,000 square metres, and currently the way, hopefully you can see that, but the way it's laid out is we've got an auditorium, and there are another couple of grids that you would just remember from the images when this was, you know, I guess when you approved it, but there are, I guess, mezzanine floors in the stage house and things like that that add a bit of height to the layer. So I'm just looking at bird's eye view here so we can see the, I guess, the usable layout of the facility. So essentially on the left-hand side, you've got your main area, the auditorium and the stage. You've got the entranceway, the foyer. There's the XL room, which is a flexible space. And then over to the right, we've got the exhibition centre and the cinema. Currently, just the working up of the models has meant that essentially we would go live with all of this at once. Other options around New Zealand have meant to help offset some of the costs. They might use the space for something different in the short term. And so as an example, it could be things like the XL room may not be used as that, or maybe the exhibition centre may not be used as that. In the short term, it might be used as sublet to office space or something like that, that you get a commercial person there for 3 years, as an example, to help offset some of those costs in the community while you get other areas up and running. And I think there are different things to look at in the early days where you do step into something that is going to be, you know, I guess turnkey is going to be around about that 1.7 million. As we work through the LTP and other sort of things that you guys are looking at, there could be, you know, a bit of an appetite to offset some of that stuff in the early days. And I guess that probably hasn't been floated here before. It was a, you know, let's go live with a facility that's ready to go from day one, and obviously that's an option. Given we are looking at everything through this LTP, I thought it might be a good question to pose to this board if it's something you did want me to explore a little bit more, understand it any further.
I was talking with Nick, one of those economic development things about, not me, it was a group discussion about reliable, predictable hot desking options.
Yep.
So that's an option for doing it.
Yep. Yep.
So Wellington rates come up, and Wellington was something like $1,000 a month for a desk.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what Cromwell rates are, but it's income.
Yeah.
Potential. So that's, I mean, it's just one of the million options.
I know one place through in Queenstown's 40 a day, so I guess for a desk.
It's not far off.
Yeah, to do 8,300 a week, I guess if you do it over 7 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, there hasn't, it's like the whole, there hasn't been that option, so you don't go to the option.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the great things about this building that you have built, is it is flexible and that can be used and shifted in lots of different ways. And so, I mean, if it's something, you know, as a board, you'd like me to go away and look at a little bit more and just understand further on, you know.
Lots of car parking and there's a cafe there, so it could be an attractive option for that.
Yeah.
People that work from home 3 days a week might work from there 2 days a week.
Yeah.
To do client stuff, you know.
Okay, all right.
Have to look at it.
Yeah, is anyone online? So,
Yep.
Yeah.
Down in the bottom.
Do you guys online have any thoughts sort of so far?
No, nothing from me. Thank you.
We say no.
No, it's still quite a lot to take in at this point, I think, yeah. Just,
Yeah, it is a lot, hey? Yeah, yeah, okay, cool.
It's not like the day we've got 100 million numbers in front of us.
No, I do have them here if you'd like them, but I thought I might start just, you know, fairly high level here, and then we can, you know, welcome to dig into them if you want, but I thought I might save them for the October LTP
Well,
workshop.
probably can relieve that.
Yeah. So I guess I'll just flip to the next one, Wayne, just sort of around next steps. So I guess continue to build out the models. For me, we are going to have to start looking, whatever model we do go up, whether it's a council, complete council run organisation, a CCO, and I'd probably drop the operating lease was just sort of a bit of show and tell, and if the guidance is from you guys to at least just look at those two, that would be very helpful for me. And I know it's sort of a lot to take in today, and maybe it's something I can just even leave you sitting with, but around the guidance of the CCO, it's something else I build out quite a lot of data on and understanding it. Sort of, it makes sense for quite a lot of these places around New Zealand. It seems to work well for them. So I have gone up that route of really investigating that and understanding it all. And I guess, you know, if there's any sort of allergic reaction from the board on that, you know, I'd love to hear it, but obviously it's a lot to sort of take in today as well. The next sort of workshop, as we mentioned, I'd probably want to come back with a fairly solid model. You know, we've sort of seen the high level here of what that looks like. This gives me, you know, I guess sort of 5 to 6 weeks to go away and really refine some of these things, really sort of start telling that story.
So are you thinking you'd be back here on the 5th of November?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, and you know, with plenty of information around the CCO option, but also the council control option as well. But given this council hasn't done a CCO before, it's something I, you know, just want to unpack a fair bit as well. You know, just make sure I'm coming with some really good, clear, and I guess easy numbers that you don't have to memorise. So, and then through the LTP, you know, by the time we sort of get to 1 July, it'd be good to have that really sort of locked in place. Just something else to bear in mind, that by the time the next LTP starts on the 1st of July, that will be likely when we need to start hiring for staff. You know, we'll start to look to hire for staff. So if we were to go up an operating model that had a bit of that corporate structure, we'd probably want to start looking for somebody about that year out, so that they could, well, we just want to start to employ a board, so they can employ a director who can employ a management team and so on and so forth. So it would probably take about a year for that runway. And so I guess over the course of the next 6 weeks, for me getting really clear on that, so the board can you know, provide some good guidance on what that looks like.
Sorry, clarification, management team? How are you thinking and what are you thinking?
I guess for a CCO,
It's like $1 million worth of salaries.
it probably won't be $1 million, but it, you know, given the structure of it and everything, you know, it would probably be over $500,000, because you have a governing board and you'd need some kind of director, and then depending on how we operate, you would need facilities of this size. They generally have 2 people, depending on, I guess, how we use it. Going up the exhibition route, there's generally a couple of people looking after the maintenance of it, the manning of it, about the size of this, and depending on what we sublease out, it'll probably have between 8 and 10 employees. Obviously, it's a 7-day facility, so it doesn't take long to start racking up some of these salaries for this, this type of thing. If I take the Cromwell pool, for example, we have 23 people working there across 7 days. They're mostly part-timers, but it doesn't take long to start racking up, maybe some numbers of employees, especially when you do go to that 7-day model one, what this is proposed as. So,
yeah, an upper hut facility is 3,000 square metres, pretty much the same offering. It would have 6, 7 permanent staff. The director, then the cafe, which is subleased out to reply, that had 3 or 4 staff at my time as well. That's a 7-day week operation.
And do you know offhand what you're operating?
It's when I left, we were probably given them somewhere in the order of $1 million something, and covered all the maintenance, covered all the depreciation. And so we covered all their salaries. And then they had a director who was quite prolific in getting grant money. And she answered to the board, and there was a group manager who was the link between the board and the director.
They'd be very helpful in providing information. Does that answer your question? Yeah. And then I guess if you look at the size of the facility, the grounds that it comes with, and things like that, from a maintenance point of view, we heard today from the Cromwell Cemetery Group, the level of service required to maintain the grounds and things like that would be higher than probably anywhere else that we would have in the district. So that comes at a higher expense, having, probably not a daily groundskeeper there, but they'll probably be there a couple of times a week in summer, as an example. So,
one little question, I suppose, is it the normal parks and reserves team just swinging in on the way past, or is it a dedicated grounds contract for that?
I think for efficiencies, we would keep it at normal parks and reserves team. We'd just make sure there was a level of service of that particular area agreed by the board that this is on a time keep, but we would utilise with the plant and the people in that team to maintain it. Yeah. That's my thoughts anyway.
Yeah, 100%. That's why we involved the box team in that design and we can get that facility in.
So it's quite exciting. There's quite a lot coming together, and I think to be able to socialise all of this together with you as a board, so you can sort of see the thinking come to life. Is there any sort of allergic reactions to, I guess, anything that I've talked about today? That you think I'm just completely off on the wrong track?
The interesting thing that the board and Upper Arts Case, the advisory board, are all volunteers, but they come from the arts, culture and heritage community. And because they actually come from the Wellington region. So we only pay their attendance costs. We didn't pay a board salary. So it's
quite a lot of
it was voluntary, and you just had food for them. But if you pay their travel costs.
So yeah, I suppose, and I've used today as an example, so I'm to record but today because I basically follow a commercial environment where stadium sold today. Town hall, which is also a fascinating thing because it's much more community focused facility, right? Well, we get given that direction from councillors as to how they want those things to be accessed by the community and how they want to function. So that's what David says, needs to direction is this a community facility or is it a commercial facility or is it some very vertical? And it might be one that it might over a period of time develop into something else in the future. So you might go, well actually I don't think it's not really going to be viable in commercial anyway, but they could build to that over a 10-year runway, but actually so it's more a community facility as it builds up. But that's one of the decisions that this board of council will have to make. Is it a community facility or is it a commercial focused facility? Because that makes a real difference to what the board does and what the director does and what staff do.
I think in the smaller rooms need to be pretty accessible to the community. But we also need to get conferences to pay some of the bigger bills.
Yeah, I mean, there aren't actually got to be small groups around probably that are accessible. Smaller groups. I mean, basically, my bit is try to get as much money out of it as you possibly can.
Yeah.
That's, but allowing that community access as well, so it's got to be a balance there, but I definitely try and get those 30% out of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, in that Hutt's case, all the work is sponsored. So the Gillies Group sponsors the recreation hall and the Gillies exhibition centre, you know, and they pay 200 or 300K a year for that. You know, so I mean, we try to squeeze that as much as you can to help offset some of its costs.
There is a conflict to manage though with, you've got people getting around in their suits with their lanyards on at a conference, and then you've got some community group traipsing through to get to a small room as well.
Yeah.
Which, you know, picking up a savoury on the way past.
Oakiness of rural New Zealand. And that's not too uncommon.
It's easy enough to see external doors though.
Yeah, yeah. So there's quite a bit I know to take in. I'm trying to sort of make it simplistic as possible. Am I okay to keep going up this road? Does the board feel there's no sort of allergic reactions?
Oh no, it's not.
Yeah, what is?
I'll see this thing go.
What is Anna?
Yeah, I think this is the road you need to keep going up. Sorry, it's a long and winding one. I can see it on the screen. It's up a creek by the looks of it.
It might sound a bit, but I guess as we keep sort of socialising and talking about this, it is actually quite simplistic. It's just it is you know, I guess a lot to bring to life. It's going to be a cool event centre. It is going to be epic. It's just going to be how much do we want the community to be paying upfront versus allowing that road to take off as it goes, you know. And I guess just in these times, these are the questions I guess.
Going back to the Hutt's case, it's not a museum exhibitions, they don't charge.
Yeah.
They made a conscious decision that this is going to be for the community. That's why the director's prolific at getting as many grants as you can. And they don't charge the community. So when they had the DC back mobility, it was free.
It's a good combination there, isn't it? Like the spaces, because the spaces where they have the most people going through the community spaces, where they have the really good sponsorship because of the exposure.
Yeah.
Oh, get some really good sponsors.
I do also, I just want to see expectation around that conference part. That's something. Realistically, David and I had a conversation about getting 5 multi-day conferences in a year, its first operational year, would be a phenomenal result.
So if we go back to slide 5, wow, I think that's just an important thing around revenue expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. We are limited in accommodation capacity, which you look straight away. And essentially, we should be selling it now to go with trade those conferences now. Because we're making decisions 6 months ago about everything else. So if we're not yet doing it, we will start to. But yeah, review expectations around conferences. Keep them relatively low.
The other question is like, how much is it? What's the going rate to hire a conference venue?
So Highlands big rooms $1,000.
Yeah.
How much? $5,000. That's their professional.
You mean pit one?
Yeah, the pit one space is $1,000, which is the biggest space in Cromwell. That is.
Yeah, the 2 other events.
Yeah, Highlands is not. Highlands will take 70 people sat at round tables. So the Gate Conference Centre is slightly bigger, and you can fit similar number in at the moorings. I've hired them all for different things, but they're all around that $1,000.
Yeah, and same with the other sort of 2 event centres I've looked around New Zealand, they're about $1,000. This is just, it is getting to the detail of it, but depending on our health and safety plans and health and safety requirements of the building, generally speaking, I can't remember the ratio, but generally it's 1 staff member for 200 people. So, you know, if you're going to have, I don't know, let's say an exhibition of say 450, 500 people, we would have to have 3 staff in there. So, you know, I guess that $1,000 would be offset by the staff cost below sort of thing, you know. So
yeah, and that's the $1,000 is before you've you've got the caterers to make you any food, or you've like at Highlands, booking the screen and the sound system, and those things cost extra. So every little bit that you book costs you extra money.
Yeah. And I think that just another thing to note is with the auditorium, and when you do get shows and stages and things like that, they generally want like a blackout period to set up and pack down, instead of generally booking an entire week, for example, they would do things like that. So
and tell me, the RSA rooms, that's not just, it's not just the, is there a room, or is exclusively the room, or is a room, but it is set aside for the RSA for their monthly, how does that?
I don't know.
I think when we've talked about that before, we've talked about it having displays of their things in it and places that they can store, but it would still be able to be hired by a community group wanting a meeting space.
And I've agreed.
Would that be right? Yeah.
Right, and they get it for their meeting on a monthly basis or whatever it is, but the rest of the funds, that's our cost.
Yeah, so it's got first dibs on.
Yep.
That was mine. Yeah.
And those meeting spaces, there's very few of those sorts of spaces in Cromwell that you can hire that are just the, I know that the Ministry of Education is always looking for those sorts of spaces that you can hire out for a medium-sized group just to have a meeting. So like zoning meetings and stuff like that, where they want to hold them away from the schools. There will be lots of organisations that are similar, that to find a room that's big enough to have a board table in it and have a meeting is quite a hard thing to do in Cromwell.
And I think that we just put this up now because we've only got 10 minutes before we should reconvene at the next.
I appreciate everyone's input. Thank you. And I'll box on. Stay safe.
Thank you.
How many more slides did you have?
It's a large flex room. If they've got screens, it can be screened on.
Yeah, that's the complete text of the space.
It's a good sized room, but the balance because of.
Yeah.
Wow, that one.